So antagonism means a drug is going to bind with a receptor and going to inhibit the action of the outcome action. That's the, so here the two drugs competing for the same type of the receptors, and if the concentration of one is going to be increased, then the concentration of another is going to be decreased. That's about the pharmacological antagonism. The antagonist partially or completely prevents the pharmacological antagonistic effect. So that's one of the pharmacological antagonism is the drug will compete for the what you call as the same receptor and going to do the action. And pharmacological antagonists are classified into competitive and non-competitive in nature. So competitive and non-competitive in nature, or competitive is also known as the reversible, whereas the non-competitive is irreversible in nature. That's one of the important thing to be discussed. Okay. Then competitive. Yes. Coming to the competitive and non-competitive. What is the difference between this non-competitive and irreversible and competitive or reversible? So usually the pharmacological antagonists bind to the same receptor as that of the agonist does. So here the pharmacological antagonist is going to bind with that of the receptor as the agonist is going to bind. So the antagonist is competing with the same type of the receptor and it occupies the binding site of the receptor and prevents the binding of agonist to the receptor. Suppose if you take the atropine sulfate as the classical example, then atropine sulfate is going to act upon all cholinergic receptors. So in the muscarinic type of the receptor, there are M1 to M5 receptors, whereas in the nicotinic N1 and NM, NN and NM type of receptor, whereas acetylcholine is going to act on the cholinergic receptors and the atropine is going to bind with that particular receptor and reverses the action of acetylcholine. Suppose in what salivary gland, if this atropine is going to bind with that of receptor, salivation is inhibited, whereas if the concentration of acetylcholine is increased, then this will be reversed. So in this way it prevents the activation of the receptor. And coming to the first one, that's the competitive antagonist. The antagonist dissociates rapidly from the receptor as the concentration of agonist increases. The antagonist effect can be overcome by increasing the agonist concentration. Example, morphine and naloxone. So these are the one morphine is the opioid receptor agonist, whereas the naloxone is the antagonist. Here, whenever there is a action of the morphine, the person is going to have the depression or he is going to sleep. Then the naloxone is a very specific antagonist, and if you increase the concentration of naloxone, then the morphine induced action will be depleted. That's how it is the competition between agonist and antagonist. So that's known as the competitive antagonist. And atropine sulfate and acetylcholine. And so many examples we can give here. Another thing is the non-competitive antagonist. The antagonist dissociates very rapidly or slowly, very slowly, or not at all from the receptor. That's known as there is no competition between the agonist and antagonist. The action of antagonist cannot be overcome by increasing the agonist concentrations. So many examples also we can give here by the example of, yes, isoproterenol. So here you can see that the as the concentration of isoproterenol, it's a adrenergic receptor antagonist. It's especially beta 1 type of the receptor are being acted by the isoproterenol. So, as the concentration of isoproterenol go on increasing, increase in the heart rate is seen. So here this y-axis is heart rate, whereas the x-axis is the concentration of isoproterenol. Isoproterenol is a drug which is going to stimulate the heart rate, or it increases the heart rate, whereas the propranolol is an antagonist, beta adrenergic receptor antagonist. So the first graph, what you can see here is as the concentration. Here for the first graph, first curve is without any antagonist. Only isoproterenol is put, and then you can see that there is an increase in the heart rate, and after attaining certain concentrations like 10 milligram or 1 point some milligram or 2 milligram per kg, then the maximum response is obtained. Then in the another thing, the second experiment, isoproterenol is administered with that of the propranolol. So propranolol prior in the administration is done, then the isoproterenol is administered, and here there is a shift to right of the curve is there, because the response or threshold response, this is called as threshold response, it has increased. That means more drug is required, more isoproterenol is required to elicit the same response, and in presence of the propranolol, it's a beta adrenergic antagonist. So, and then you are increasing the concentration of propranolol 2 times, double. Then you can see once again the curve is shifted to the right. Here in the first stage, without any antagonist, it is the EC50 is lesser than that of the with antagonist, and double the dose of the antagonist here. So that's the competitive type of the inhibition. Means as the concentration of agonist go on increasing, the response is also going to be increased. At the same time, if with the presence of a competitive antagonist, the curve is shifted to right. Or if you go on increasing the concentration of the propranolol and increasing the concentration of agonist, the curve is being shifted to right. So whereas in case of non-competitive inhibition, example is norepinephrine. So norepinephrine is tested for the increase in the blood pressure for the phenoxybenzamine. Phenoxybenzamine is an inhibitor of beta adrenergic receptors. So here you can see the concentration of the agonist in the first curve. That's the norepinephrine only here. It has reached to the peak with certain doses like 10 milligram per kg and other thing. Whereas in presence of phenoxybenzamine, an antagonist, so the maximum response has been decreased. Whereas in case of the competitive exam, this antagonist, the maximum response has not been increased, is increased to the same extent of the agonist. Whereas here it is reduced to a greater extent, and the threshold dose has never increased here. Means it is non-competitive in nature. So if you increase the concentration of antagonist in the non-competitive inhibition, then the maximum efficacy attained will be less. So here the effect is not reversible in nature. That's why it's known as the non-competitive. There is no competition between the agonist and antagonist, whereas that is known as the non-competitive antagonist. So here you can see there is a activity of a what you call as effect and log dose response. If you plot this thing and the particular site in the receptor is both agonist and antagonist. If it is going to act with that of the particular receptor, then if the response is full, means the response is up to the 100%, then it's the agonist is known as full agonist. If it is partial or the maximum efficacy reached is less than of the full agonist is called as the partial agonist, and antagonist is the one which neutralizes the action of the agonist. And this here, whenever the antagonist, the pool of the agonist is administered with that of the agonist, the action is totally reversed, means it is inverse agonist. Inverse agonist means in future I am going to tell it in detail. So an inverse agonist is the one which elicits the opposite action, very similar to that of the antagonistic action. Here there is a chart that the before drug, it's going to before drug, then here the substance is a natural substance or it's a ligand in nature. It is going to bind with that of the receptor site. So many such ligands are there, ligand or drug or whatever it may be. So it is going to act on the receptor site. Then there will be normal cellular activity. There will be normal cellular activity. And if in the presence of the what you call as the antagonist, then before the drug means it's a natural phenomenon, or suppose it's known as the in our body, the endogenously the norepinephrine is produced. So it's going to act on the receptor site and normal activity is related. Suppose if you are exogenously administered the norepinephrine to the human being or to the any animal, then it is also going to be bind with that of the receptor site, and there is enhanced cellular activity. Enhanced cellular activity. For example, if you administer norepinephrine, then the heart rate will be markedly increased. That's known as the agonistic activity of norepinephrine on heart. Or else, if you administer acetylcholine exogenously, then the salivation will be increased. That's known as the enhanced cellular activity. Whereas the antagonistic drug, so this is, suppose this is atropine sulfate in case of the cholinergic system, or phenoxybenzamine in case of the adrenergic nervous system. Then it is going to bind with that of the receptor and the activity will be blocked. That's known as the cellular activity will be blocked forever. That's known as the antagonistic action. So here the dose is appropriate amount of a drug required to produce a desired pharmacological effect, and some of the terminologies are here, few terminologies. What is the, here also in agonistic and antagonistic activities, we will learn certain terminologies like loading dose. What's a loading dose? Loading dose is the one which is required to achieve a target concentration very rapidly. Loading dose means a big dose of or larger dose of a drug is administered to achieve a target concentration rapidly, whereas the maintenance dose is the one which is used to retain the target concentration by balancing the elimination. Maintenance dose means, suppose you are administering an anesthetic, suppose it's a thiopentone sodium, then the loading dose is 10 milligram per kg, means you are at a simultaneously you are administering 500 milligram to the animal, but in the serum the required concentration is 1 milligram per kg. Then slowly you are going to administer the dose, because the anesthesia that's maintained should be anesthesia that's reached to the peak should be maintained. and this is used to retain the target level by balancing the elimination. So whenever you administer a drug to the body of an animal, then simultaneously there will be biotransformation, simultaneously there is excretion. So to maintain the anesthetic stage, I am giving the example, anesthetic stage, then you have to administer the what you call as the maintenance dose. And here another example is given. Suppose the loading dose of doxycycline is 200 milligram per milligram totally, and maintenance dose is 100 milligram per day. Means in the tissue, suppose, so whenever a drug is administered, please hear it carefully. Whenever a drug is administered, it has to go to the circulation, maybe any route, whether IV route or IM route. It has to go to circulation. It will reach the heart and pumped throughout the body. Whenever you administer a drug, it will reach the circulation, then it will reach all part of the body. Suppose then wherever the receptors are there, wherever the tissue is there, then if a particular receptor is there, then the drug is going to do the action. So you cannot make any drug very specific to a site. So whenever you administer a drug, then directly is circulated in the entire circulatory system. Then whenever it reaches the liver, it is biotransformed, or then it is excreted through kidney. So initially the concentration of the drug will be more in the body. So as the time proceeds, suppose 1 hour, 2 hours like that, the concentration of the drug in the body is going to be reduced. So to maintain a therapeutic concentration at the site of action, suppose in the heart there should be 1 microgram per liter of the blood, it should be there. Then you have to administer simultaneous doses, that's known as the maintenance dose. So here, this is very common to all the drugs. Suppose here a loading dose of 200 milligram of doxycycline is administered, then the concentration of doxycycline go on increasing. Suppose this is a what you call as intramuscular injection or oral dose. This is known as the loading dose. Then after this thing, in between certain time, the different doses are given, maybe 100 milligram per day per kg. Then the dose, the therapeutic concentration will be maintained, and the absorption site, at the type of the absorption site, the total dose is going to be maintained, or it is the drug action will be uniform. Suppose here the loading dose, and suppose it is given at the intramuscular injection, then it's initially there will be peak, then it is going to be maintained by the maintenance dose. And here you can see the suppose there is a loading dose is given by IV. Here you can see the first, this is the drug concentration as percentage, whereas this is the half-life, or this thing half-life. Then initially there will be peak concentration, then it is maintained by loading dose followed by the infusion, or else without any what you call as the loading, this maintenance dose, the concentration will be, it is decreased. Suddenly it's going to decrease. Whereas if you maintain the, given the maintenance dose, then the concentration is going to be maintained. Whereas infusion without any loading dose means the dose, normal dose, usually loading dose is little bit high, then it will follow the hyperbola, and this is a bolus dose without any infusion, further maintenance dose, whereas this is a loading dose followed by the maintenance dose. It will, the concentration or steady state concentration is known as the steady state concentration will be maintained here.
Sir, can you repeat the graph?
Pardon me?
Sir, can you repeat the graph once again? Not got the point, sir.
Point, you didn't quite? Okay, no problem. Yeah. Here you can see this is the log dose concentration, and see the thing is one is loading dose and another one is the maintenance dose. In the earlier we can go, loading dose is required to achieve a target concentration rapidly, very rapidly. Then this example what we can give is the anesthetic example, the thiopentone sodium. A dog has come to the hospital and you have to do the castration, then you have to induce the anesthesia. Suppose the loading dose is the required to achieve a target concentration and the dog has to sleep very fastly. Then maintenance dose is used to retain the target level by balancing the elimination. Means whenever you administer a drug, the elimination will also be started. So here the initially 500 milligram of the thiopentone is given, followed by a maintenance of 10 or 15 milligram per kg. That's you can see it here. Initially the high dose is given to reach a concentration, that's the effective concentration. Then in between certain intervals the small injections are given, then so that the maintenance of the therapeutic effectivity will be in the body. So this is another graph showing the same thing. Here the injection is given IV, then it has reached peak, then without any maintenance dose it will come to the baseline because of the biotransformation and excretion. Whereas if you administer the maintenance doses, the therapeutic concentration will be maintained like this. And here this is the infusion without any loading dose, means without the more dose or therapeutic concentration dose. Slowly it is going to increase and reach peak and it will come down. You got it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So now coming to the certain terminologies are there in the agonist. Agonist is a drug that interacts with a very specific receptors and elicits an observable positive response. Observable positive response. Agonist is the one always it is referred to as the positive response. The agonist can activate the receptor because it resembles the endogenous ligand such as neurotransmitter or hormone. So here a ligand means any substance which is going to bind with that of the receptor and initiate the action. So what is a endogenous ligand? Endogenous ligand is the one which is produced inside the body. The example is acetylcholine and norepinephrine. Both of these are endogenous ligands to cholinergic and adrenergic receptors. So suppose you are administering the isoproterenol, so it is also an agonist. So this will activate the receptor because it resembles the endogenous ligand, especially the norepinephrine. So here you can see that agonist is going to bind with that of the receptor. Just imagine like this is a groove like this, and agonist is going to bind with that of the receptor, and there will be conformational change in the membrane. In the previous classes you have seen how the receptor will be, the structure. Conformational changes will be there. Then ultimately there will be a biological response. Means suppose this receptor is present on small intestine, then you have administered acetylcholine, then there will be conformational changes of the receptor or cholinergic receptor, then there is contraction of the intestine. This is the biological response. Whereas the antagonist, suppose atropine is given with the same type of the receptors, that's the what you call as the cholinergic receptors in the intestine, then there is no change in the structure of the receptor. So then what happens is turn off state, means no biological response is obtained. That's known as the agonistic and antagonistic activity. So there are certain terminologies are there. There is a full agonist. What's a full agonist? Then it is an agonist that binds to and activates a receptor to elicit the greatest response of which the respective tissue is capable of. Means full agonist means it will utilize the capacity of the tissue to full extent, and it is going to activate a receptor to elicit the greatest response of which the respective tissue is capable of. So suppose if you take a small intestine piece and apply acetylcholine on it in the intact tissue experimentation, there will be contraction. Then that maximum concentration contraction obtained by this acetylcholine, then it is known as the full agonist. Means suppose if XY in the XYZ concentration of this acetylcholine, you are getting the maximum what you call as the contraction. That is known as the full agonist. For a full agonist, the intrinsic activity is equal to intrinsic activity, means it is the inhibited capacity of the drug to elicit the response. Activity is 1. For practical purposes, the term full agonist and antagonist are agonist are used interchangeably. So usually agonist means full agonist only. For a practical purpose in the pharmacology, several times we will refer agonist means it is the full agonist only, unless we use a specific terminology. Examples of full agonist include isoprenaline that mimics the action of endogenous ligand epinephrine at beta adrenergic receptors. Examples of full agonist includes isoprenaline that mimics the action of endogenous ligand epinephrine at beta adrenal receptors, and morphine mimics the action of endorphins at opioid receptor. So the endogenous ligand is epinephrine or adrenaline at beta receptor. It's a agonist. So full agonist is the one which mimics the natural ligand to the highest extent. Just like the endogenous ligand to the opioid receptors are the endorphins. Inside the body, these endorphins are released and they are going to act on the opioid receptors, then going to elicit the response. So the morphine mimics the action of the endorphins to the highest extent. That's why it's a full agonist. It will elicit the full response of the endogenous ligand. Then another called as the partial agonist. An agonist that acts on the same receptor as a full agonist, but regardless of its dose, it cannot elicit the greatest response of which the respective tissue is capable of. So in the full agonist, what has happened? The tissue has shown its maximum capacity of either contraction or some some action, whereas the partial agonist is the one, instead of its dose, whether the dose increased to the greater extent, but it is not going to elicit the greatest response of which the tissue is capable of. A partial agonist has high affinity for the receptor, but possesses a low to moderate intrinsic activity. So here you can see that a partial agonist, the intrinsic activity is always less than 1, because whereas for the full agonist, the intrinsic activity means the response is 1, or it will be between 0 to 1. Here one example you can remember is buprenorphine, a semi-synthetic opioid, has the partial agonist actions at mu opioid receptor. Buprenorphine, a semi-synthetic opiate, has partial agonist actions at the mu opioid receptors. So here in the partial agonist is the one which is it's also the agonist, but it will not produce the highest response of the tissue. That's known as the partial. It is going to elicit the partial response. So that's known as the partial agonist. Here you can see in the diagrammatic representation, it may be easy to know. Here the the dose of the drug is in the x-axis, whereas the activity in percent is expressed on y-axis. Suppose it is a what you call as the earlier drug, what you call as the morphine. So then if you go on increasing the dose, then the response EB max is, it will reach to the 100%, means the maximum capacity of a tissue it will reach, that's the 100%. Whereas if you administer the partial agonist, then the response will be less than that of the maximum response. That's the partially the tissue is going to respond. So that's the diagrammatic representation of the full agonist and partial agonist. Simply remember this thing.